Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode, you are going to hear opinions. And while the podcast is endorsed by Uriah Heep, the opinions of the host and various guests do not necessarily represent the opinions of the band or any of the members past or present. With that being said, let's celebrate the music of Uriah Heep. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and we have a really good song for you guys today. By title alone, this should be a rock and roll anthem just as much as the song Long Live Rock and Roll or I Love Rock and Roll, because when it comes down to it, you can't keep a good band down. And this is such a theme for these guys because throughout the last 50 years, changes, members coming and going, so much turmoil and things, but no matter what, Mick was able to keep this band together and moving forward through all the highs and lows. And it just goes to show you can't keep a good band down. Even COVID has not stopped these guys. They're working on a new album. You got to love it. And so I think that this is a perfect song to be going over. And it's one I really enjoy, actually. It's one that you could really just kind of like sing along to very easily. It's really light and bouncy. And we have a couple different versions of it. Now, there's not a huge difference between the first and the second. It's really more of an edit, but the edit is kind of interesting. So I'm going to play that for you when we're done with the initial song. But I say, since this is such a great song, let's just get right into it. Here it is, Can't Keep a Good Band Down by Uriah Heep off the album High and Mighty. How could you not at least be tapping your foot or something, maybe your thumb on your knee or something? Like, that's just got to get you moving. Such a great, energetic lead, wonderful, crazy synth in there, some really strong foundation that we're building here. And the song sounds great. The drums are mixed, I think, a little bit better into this one than they were the last song. So I like that. And incidentally, while I'm thinking about it, I forgot to mention this in the opening, but the song Midnight, I looked it up. It actually was the last song on the first side of the LP. So that was a perfect ending to side one. Great song. I love the way that ended. But anyway, we're here to talk about Can't Keep a Good Band Down. So let's find out what happens next as we get into the first vocal section. So much like with Midnight, I really like the sound of the vocals. I think they are a little bit quiet in this mix as well, but the sound of them is great. It's doubled up, got a little bit of effect on it. Very powerful. I really love the little inflections and, stylistic choices that we're getting in the verse here. They're a lot of fun, really enjoyable, and I think they complement the song very well. Love what the guitars are doing. They just sit in there perfectly. I'm hearing, I think, two different guitars, one a little more to my right and one slightly left of center. But they're just, they're keeping the rhythm going solidly. Great solid drums. Bass line is beautiful. It's, every component of a good rock song. It's a pretty rare thing to me, just thinking back over the albums we've listened to so far. But I love when the band every once in a while will just do, backups that are straight without an extra harmony in parts, because it just is a nice thickener. It adds a little bit of color to it without being dominating. And it's nice to have that breakup, because when you hear the backups come in, you're kind of expecting that high harmony. And every once in a while, it's kind of nice to not hear it. It's like they really know how to break things up and do things differently, and they're not so formulated that they're like, okay, well, we're going to have a harmony, so here's who's going to do the doubling, here's going to do the octave, and here's going to do the third, or however they're going to do it for that piece. They don't always use the same formula. And I like that. I like that things are different from song to song, because you never really know what you're going to get the first time you hear it. And that makes it exciting. I love the sound of that. Reminds me a little bit of the end of Circle of Hands for some reason. I think it might be just the particular guitar sound, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's the register they're playing in or the notes they're playing or something, but it just kind of reminds me of the end of Circle of Hands from Demons and Wizards. Either way, though, it's a really nice part. I love the background guitar in there, the one that you hear at the beginning that just kind of just places some notes in there really gently to add some filler. And then the two guitars that we're hearing doing that part, really nice, really nice. I love the way that's blended together. And I really love the sound of the guitars. I feel like I say that on every song, but I do. It's just, not over distorted. It just has that right feeling. They sit very well in the mix in this song. So, once again, good stuff. That was a really nice choice. I love the fact that they didn't stop the music when the chorus came on like they did the first time. That's really nice, because you kind of expect that that's what's going to happen, right? We get so programmed on when we hear certain parts of songs, when those parts come up again, they're probably going to play the same way that they did the first time. So you're kind of expecting the music to stop, and it almost feels like it's going to, but it doesn't. And I really like that. I like that they didn't do that. It was a nice surprise when I heard it. And every time I've heard it since then, it just makes me smile that they made that choice. There is some really beautiful bass work going on in the background. It's a little less prominent in the mix than we're used to on this album, but it's really cool stuff that's being played. So check that out as we go into the next passage, unless they change it. That is a fantastic fade out. I really want to know where that was going, because they were changing things on each pass, keeping it interesting, and then it just stopped. Now, I like the fact that they dropped out part of the lyrics on the repeats. That's kind of cool. Just really the supporting lyrics and changing the backups, making those really interesting. I would love to have heard more of that, but a really cool ending. I don't know how well you're able to hear the bass, because it is, like I said, a little bit buried in the mix on this one. He's playing some low notes, some higher notes. but it's really, really cool. I'm listening on some studio headphones, so they might be bringing a little bit different of a clarity in those areas than the medium that you're listening on. Maybe not. Hopefully you can hear it because it's really, really worth listening. But overall, it sounds good. You got the nice, powerful organ kicked in. You got the guitars keeping things going. Vocals have backed off and are just placed in certain more strategic areas. It's really cool, I love the way the song ended. So, another thumbs up, of course, but I knew that going in because I know the song. But let's check out just the beginning of the alternate version because it is just a little bit different. It's a little bit shorter, kind of gives you a different feeling going into the song. But, eventually you arrive in the same place. I think there's a little bit more stretched out of a first verse, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same song, same fade out and all that. But I'm going to play you the beginning of it so you can see. So it's about half the length. I don't know if that was just cut down for the radio because this version is about 3 minutes and 10 seconds. So they might have just tried to trim it down with the hopes of getting it on the radio. I could see that. I think this would be a great radio song. Like I said, it's very thematic. I love the concept of it. I think it would have been, potentially one of those rock and roll icon theme type things. Maybe licensed in some projects, some films or television or just something. I think the song had a lot of potential. I don't know what it went on to do. I don't know if it was released as a single, but in any case, I think it's a great song. I think that, I think this says a lot about the maturity of the band, the changes that they're making in the writing and in the performances. Definitely keeps it interesting. And it's so unpredictable, this band, what they're going to do with the song. It's like, with a lot of bands, you hear the first 30 to 45 seconds of a song, and you're like, okay, I know where this is going. And then when the vocals kick in, you're like, okay, I see how that's going to work. There's probably going to be one bridge or something in here that I don't know what it's going to be like, or maybe they'll cut it to half tempo at some point. But you kind of get where most songs are going to go. With Uriah Heep, you just don't know because they throw in all these crazy parts. They do harmonies differently. It's so cool. And then there'll just be like a different kind of synthesizer that comes in out of nowhere or a theremin. Everything is just kind of an exciting, I think of it like, I don't know, did you guys ever have the candy Cracker Jacks came in that little box and there was always a mystery surprise in it, whether it was like a sticker or a rub-on tattoo or a magnifying glass that was made of plastic and would scratch easily. You just never knew what the prize was going to be, but you knew there was going to be something exciting in that box. Well, maybe exciting is a strong word in that case, but to compare, it's almost the same thing with Uriah Heep. It's almost like here's the title, and then there's a subtle question mark in there because you really don't know what the song is going to have to offer. And they put in these little gems. Sometimes it's just a few notes in the background. Sometimes it's a whole change or, an unexpected stylistic choice. But there's always something. There's some gem in these songs that really just keeps it interesting. And I love the way they wrote. I think that's one of the things that attracts me to this band so much over a lot of other bands because they're unpredictable in their writing, at least through these stages. When you get into the 80s, things change a little bit, but, there's still some good stuff in there. And we're going to get to all of that as we get to it. I think we're still in 76? Yeah, I think we're in 1976 right now. So I was 4 years old. That's enough said about that. So that's the show, guys. Thanks for listening in. I hope you enjoyed this song. It is, to me, just a wonderful song. I've enjoyed it many, many times over the years. And it's one of those songs that, can really pump you up, too, if you want to let it. It would have been kind of interesting, though, because there's really no keyboard solo. When you have a keyboard intro, sometimes you'll do a throwback to that intro later on in the song. There was nothing like that. That sort of synth solo feel never came back. I didn't realize that until just now. It's like when you realize, oh, wow, that song had no solo in it at all. This one had that nice little guitar part in it, but there was no return to the synth, which is kind of interesting. No throwback there. But, that's what they did, and it worked just fine because it's a great song. So thank you guys for joining me this week. I hope you have a fantastic day. It is Tuesday. We'll be off tomorrow, but back on Thursday for another episode and another song. Thank you guys for hanging out. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, The Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!